It is not the intensity of punishment that has the greatest effect on the human spirit, but its duration, for our sensibility is more easily and more permanently affected by slight but repeated impressions than by a powerful but momentary action. Eastern State Penitentiary, funded by the Pennsylvania legislature in 1821 at the urging of the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons, was a revolutionary correctional facility designed to promote penitence in prisoners through solitary confinement and labor, called the Pennsylvania System. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania purchased 11 acres of elevated farmland known as Cherry Hill near Philadelphia for $11,000 on November 24, 1821, and funded the erection of the Eastern State Penitentiary between 1822 and 1836. Designed by British architect John Haviland and opened on October 25, 1829, Eastern State is considered to be the world's first true penitentiary. John Haviland's winning design featured a unique radial plan where 7 cell blocks branched out from a central hub like the spokes of a wheel. This radial layout was intended to facilitate watching, convenience, economy, and ventilation, allowing a single guard in the central hub to monitor all cell blocks. Each prisoner was assigned a private cell equipped with amenities that were advanced for the era, such as central heating, running water, flushing toilets, and a skylight referred to as the Eye of God or Window of God. Prisoners were expected to spend their days in their cells, reflecting on their crimes and seeking reform. To ensure this isolation, the prison had features like small doors requiring inmates to bow upon entering and leaving cells, thought to encourage humility, and individual exercise yards to prevent contact with other prisoners. Despite these efforts, prisoners found ways to communicate through plumbing pipes and during limited exercise periods. These cells, described as a forced monastery, and the penitentiary's church-like interior, featuring barrel-vaulted hallways and high-arched windows, were meant to encourage self-reflection and spiritual introspection. The intimidating Gothic exterior, conversely, was designed to deter potential criminals. All penitentiary systems were thought by reformers to convey 2 benefits. First, it was believed that the isolation of inmates from one another would prevent the spread of moral corruption among inmate populations. Second, cellular confinement would not merely punish and deter crime, it would also be an instrument to reform the individual criminal. Through solitude and contemplation, the wrongdoer could repent and be rehabilitated as a useful member of society. Solitary confinement, it was believed, would not merely contain the spread of criminality, but cure it. However, despite the well-meaning intentions and optimism of reformers, it soon became apparent that prolonged isolation, this slow and daily tampering with the mysteries of the brain, as English writer Charles Dickens put it after a visit to Eastern State in 1842, led not to redemption but to psychological distress and mental breakdowns. Charles Dickens called the penitentiary's practices rigid, strict, and hopeless solitary confinement, and stated, "I believe it in its effects to be cruel and wrong." However, its practice of strict isolation began eroding decades earlier as prisoners started to share cells, dining spaces, and more due to a rapidly growing population. Although the building was originally designed to incarcerate 250 people, the penitentiary's population peaked at approximately 1,700 in the mid-1920s. To accommodate the prisoners, construction continued at Eastern State throughout its operational years, expanding the penitentiary's footprint from 7 to 15 cell blocks by 1956. The construction of the original 7 cell blocks, observatory, cistern, and engine house, administration building, walls and corner towers, was complete in 1836 at a price of near to $800,000. The 1913 law signed by Governor John K. Tanner marked a shift at Eastern State Penitentiary from its long-standing solitary confinement system towards a congregate system more akin to modern prisons. In a congregate prison setting, Eastern State adopted features of the Auburn system, where prisoners would gather for work and other activities while still being isolated at night. The prison introduced group dining halls in 1924, allowing prisoners to eat together. Individual exercise yards were converted into workshops, and inmates worked together in these spaces. Sports were a favorite pastime at Eastern, and inmates had 2 hours of yard out each day. Despite the presence of the power plant and the shop building, the yard between cell blocks 3 and 4 served as a makeshift baseball and football field. Other popular sports included quoits, handball, basketball, boxing, volleyball, and weightlifting. In 1970, faced with costly repairs and deteriorating conditions, Pennsylvania ceased the operation of Eastern State Penitentiary. In 1971, the state of Pennsylvania leased the site to the city of Philadelphia for $1. The city continued to use the site for various purposes until and after its 1977 purchase from the state for $162,000. After being used briefly as a city jail in 1971, the building stood empty and at risk of demolition until 1988, when, at the urging of a task force of concerned architects, preservationists, and historians, Philadelphia Mayor Wilson Goode halted the process of selling the site. With the help of countless partners, the Eastern State Penitentiary Task Force began to pursue their vision to preserve this iconic landmark and stabilize it to make it safe and accessible to the public. In 1994, Eastern State Penitentiary Historic Site welcomed 10,000 visitors for its first year of hard hat tours. In the decades since, hundreds of thousands of visitors from across the country and around the world have had the opportunity to bear witness to and learn from this architectural wonder and the many stories it holds. Today, Eastern State continues to preserve the historic site, shedding light on its complicated legacy to advance public understanding of the criminal justice system and its impact on the lives of those affected by it to inspire a more just future.